Good evening, folks. I hope you're all doing okay tonight. So, this might surprise some people, but I like to look at lists of movies, often of things long forgotten. And I see the names of some of these films and read about them, and I say, I wonder if that's any good. And I noticed an older movie called Pit and the Pendulum, like the Edgar Allan Poe story. And I saw it on a list of horror films worth watching, so I said, why not? I'll give it a watch. 1961, I wonder what scary stuff they were turning out back then. So here's the plot summary from Wikipedia. 1547 Spain. Englishman Francis Barnard visits the castle of his brother-in-law, Nicholas Medina, played by Vincent Price, to investigate the mysterious disappearance of his sister, Elizabeth. Nicholas and his younger sister, Catherine, offer a vague explanation that Elizabeth died from a rare blood disorder 3 months earlier. Nicholas is evasive when Francis asks for specific details. Francis vows not to leave until he discovers the truth behind his sister's death. And then there's hijinks. And then you're wondering, what does any of this have to do with the original Edgar Allan Poe story? And I'll just say you have to watch the movie to find out, but don't worry, there is a pit and there is a pendulum, even if the pit is sort of shoehorned in at the last moment. I'm not the biggest Edgar Allan Poe aficionado, but I think I remember enough to say for much of the movie it felt like it was made by fans of his work. Because even when they were embellishing the story with their own ideas, it all felt like something Poe would write. It wouldn't surprise me if this was a compilation of a few Poe stories. So this film was very atmospheric, and it had this wonderful feeling of dread throughout the whole thing. A lot of walking through this castle, discovering secret passages, and unburying the undead. Unburying the dead. Oh yeah, it had a cool moment that I'm pretty sure was inspired by Disney's Sleeping Beauty, which had come out 2 years prior. You all know the scene where Princess Aurora is in a zombie trance and is led away to the spinning wheel to die. And the fairies are like, oh my gosh, where's Rose? Rose, Rose, where are you? There's a scene in this movie that plays out almost exactly like that. And I'm like, oh, you nicked that from Disney. Steal from the best. So how did they mess it up? There's a lot of thrills and a lot of suspense that get built up only for someone to be like, I was just playing along the whole time. I planned it that way. And the other person's like, oh yes, well I was playing along the whole time also. I knew all along that you knew all along, ha ha ha. And I was left thinking, well, isn't that dull and boring? It was otherwise mostly solid except for that element. Even if it didn't have the prior disappointment I just mentioned, I'm not sure if the movie is worth revisiting because it is ultimately meaningless. The characters at the end are like, well, that was close, mystery solved, and it ends. And I'm left thinking, that was a little cool, but I'm not going to petition to have this preserved in the Library of Congress. But if you're one of those people who likes to try out new things around Halloween, then maybe give it a watch. That is all. That's all I have. Good night, everyone.